Before we get into the video, I do want to highlight a very important initiative that both Grapes and Hawk are doing for the 2024 CLOL season. So if you haven't heard, or if you've been living under a rock, or if you haven't seen the news, the 2024 CLOL season will not be having an official broadcast. With that information, Grapes and Hawk have decided to crowdfund a fully streamed and fully produced 2024 CLOL broadcast. If you care about collegiate, please consider donating. No amount is too little and everything helps. If you can't donate, please think about retweeting it and resharing it through all your social media pages. The last and final group we'll be talking about in this video is Group A. This group consists of Winthrop University, University of Mississippi, St. Louis University, and Maryville University. This group is the cream of the crop. Every single team on this group has a chance to go for the CLOL title and can make a big run towards that championship. The skill ceilings on these teams are so high. They've got NACL players, really successful OQ players. Well, some of these players either competed in a tier 1 league or were supposed to compete in a tier 1 league. Every single team has such a high condensation of talent that it's very, very likely that one of these 4 teams will win the CLOL Championship. The first team we'll be talking about is Winthrop University. They compete in the National Esports Collegiate Conference, aka the NECC Conference. They went 5-0 in their group stage and went all the way to grand finals before losing 3-0 to Ole Miss to secure second place in the NECC. Their roster consists of top laner Denethor, jungler Wakao, mid laner Sword, bottom laner Mobility, and support Chookies. This team has a massive top lane carry in Denethor, one of the best top laners in CLOL at the moment. He's regularly solo killing his laners and is taking these hard carry matchups like the Camille, like the Gwen. He can also obviously play the Renekton, the Gnar, the Aatrox. The big thing you'll notice about a lot of players in these groups is that they have a very, very wide champion pool, and they have these moments where they can just 1v9 and take over the game. Denethor is no different. On his carry champions, they play very, very well. And the big thing about Winthrop is that they play with side lane pressure so well, right? Mid lane Sword will pick stuff like Talia, Rise, Ahri, stuff that can move to side lanes very quickly and create numbers advantages while Denethor is splitting, or even vice versa while Sword is splitting. Bottom lane for Mobility and Chookies, they really like to play the Lucian combos pretty frequently, like Lucian Milio, Lucian Nami if it's up. They like these aggressive bottom lanes, and Wakao and Sword just kind of buddy up in these mid 2v2s very, very frequently, right? Talia Xin, Nico Xin, Viego Ahri Vi, these strong 2v2s that then allow them to control side lanes and allow them to create pressure across the map. Very, very proactive compositions coming out from Winthrop. I feel like when they're on the back foot, when they're playing the scaling kind of compositions, they're not as good of a team, but when they're on these very high tempo or proactive compositions, that's where Winthrop really gets to shine. The second team we'll be talking about is University of Mississippi, aka Ole Miss. They compete in the National Esports Collegiate Conference. They went 6-0 in their group stage and went undefeated in playoffs, winning the title of the NECC champion and securing first seed overall in NECC. Their roster consists of top laner Stray, jungler Icelandic Hero, mid laner Your Uncle Sam, bottom laner Shogo, and support Rhino. The strength of this team comes from their bot lane. Shogo is arguably the best AD carry in CLOL right now, and Rhino as a support pairs so well with him because of their champion Ocean. They are literally a 1v9 or 2v9 bot lane and can single-handedly carry Ole Miss to big, big victories. The other big point about this team is that top lane has a very diverse champion pool. He's a former LLA tier 1 player, Stray, and has just been willing to kind of be as flexible as possible for this team. He will play the Rumble, the TF, the Renekton, the Gragas, the Udyr, the Cassante. He's a very malleable player and is willing to be the big body frontline for Shogo and Rhino, and also take some of that carry responsibility away with the Rumble, with the TF, if he's allowed to have it. Another big strength of this team is I feel like University of Mississippi or Ole Miss has some of the best flex picks available, and the way they flex blue side is insane, right? They have such strong Maokai flex, TF flex, Talia flex, Rek'Sai potentially right now, both in the jungle and the top lane. Their ability to play in the draft and use their flex picks intelligently has netted them a lot of wins and has thrown very good teams off, just like their victory against Winthrop. The other big thing about this team is that their mid laner Uncle Sam plays a lot of very self-sufficient champions, or champions that will eventually just have value throughout the game, right? Azir, Orianna, Twisted Fate. Talia, these kinds of setup champions that can kind of follow up on a lot of the CC or the champions that Icelandic Heroes picking, whether it's the Lee Sin, the Wukong, potentially the Maokai, or even the Sejuani. He's a Pocket Lilia available as well. I think the thing that Icelandic Hero and Uncle Sam do very well as a mid-jungle duo is that they really set up fights for success, for Stray, for Shogo to really kind of finish things off. Their ability to look for plays and be proactive with this mid-jungle 2v2, whether they're on the Talia, whether they're on the TF, and whether, you know, he's on something like the Lee Sin combo or the Wukong, their ability to look for fights and find team fights and set them up for the rest of Ole Miss is very, very good. And I think it's a very underrated aspect of this Ole Miss team composition. There are a lot of permaban champions against Ole Miss at the moment, whether it's the Callista, the Jinx, the Twisted Fate, the Azir, the Rumble, that if you leave any of these really big OP power picks open, they have comps ready, set, and designed to take advantage of how strong they are in the draft and how well they can flex around a lot of these picks and throw the enemy off. The third team we'll be talking about is St. Louis University. They compete in the CLOL North Conference. They went 7-0 in groups and went undefeated until grand finals, losing 3-0 to Maryville to net second overall in the North. Their roster consists of top laner Surdy, jungler Winnie, mid laner Darkwings, bottom laner Aaron, and support player Doxa. Every single one of these players compete in the NACL. Surdy plays for FlyQuest Challengers, while Winnie, Darkwings, Aaron, and Doxa all compete for Wildcard Gaming. They have a ton of competitive experience, and Surdy in this roster specifically is a jack of all trades top laner. He plays tanks, he plays carries, he plays bruisers, he plays literally everything, but I think he's very effective on these more lane dominant champions where you can kind of exert some of his more mechanical prowess against the enemy later. Winnie plays a lot of Xin Zhao, Vi, Sejuani, a lot of proactive junglers that can pressure early. He really likes to gank and he really likes to put pressure both in the top side but also in bot lane for Aaron and Doxa, who really lean towards a lot of those more lane dominant or lane heavy champions. Think Varus, Lucian, Senna, Callista, if it's not banned against them. Aaron and Doxa are willing to kind of run those bot lanes and put a lot of pressure on the enemy bot lane, and Winnie is there to regularly support that with things like the Xin Zhao or the Vi or the Sedge. Mid lane has a pretty standard champion pool. Darkwings plays a lot of Orianna, Karma, Azir, Victor. These champs have a lot of value and impact in team fights, and he's almost always, you know, kind of being a nuisance in the mid lane. And when it comes to these 5v5 team fights, when it comes to these skirmishes, he's always playing them to the best of his ability and really being the difference maker in some of these fights. The other cool thing about Aaron and Doxa is that Doxa was a former mid laner before swapping to support, so they can explore a lot of the more Senna pairings that we've seen, whether it's mages or whether it's Yasuo that they like to pair up with the Sejuani that Winnie likes to pick. Usually they'll pick it with a double melee top and bottom lane carry for Yasuo, and I think that's just very, very, you know, interesting and provides another wrinkle into the SLU draft that can be explored. SLU works best when Surdy is on something that he can kind of exert his lane dominance on, and Winnie is there to support him. Surdy himself has just hard carried a lot of these games and is able to 1v9, but it's not like Aaron, Doxa, and Darkwings are playing from behind consistently or cannot play with jungle pressure. They regularly will generate their own leads in that bottom lane and can use that to exert a lot of pressure onto these early objectives, whether it's Dragon, Grubs, Herald. The skirmishing power of St. Louis University is one of their big strengths, and I want to see them carry that into the CLOL and into the top 4. The final team we'll be talking about is Maryville University. They compete in the CLOL North Conference. They went 7-0 in groups, 12-1 in playoffs, 3-0ing SLU in the grand finals to net themselves first place in the North Conference. Their roster consists of top laner Niles, jungler Yuji, mid laner Spyrax, bottom laner Scary Jerry, and support player Zyko. Niles in this roster picks a ton of Aatrox, Rumble, Cassante. He's a very self-sufficient player in this top side and is able to put a lot of pressure on the map onto enemy jungle and mid laner, and is regularly ganking mid lane if he has a pushing lane, whether that's something on the Renekton, the Rumble, that kind of stuff. He's almost always looking for angles to gank mid or pressure enemy jungle, specifically with Yuji, who has just been a beast this CLOL season, right? Competes in the NACL. All of Maryville University compete in the NACL. They ended up getting second in the spring NACL tournament here. And Yuji and Spyrax have just looked like the best mid 2v2 in CLOL, period. They have such good synergy, and their early kill percentages, their ability to pressure both the mid lane and the map is unparalleled in my mind. Yuji and Spyrax will have all these cool 2v2 combos that they like to play, whether it's like the Hui Xin, the Ari Viego, Ari Vi. They'll run Kindred Azir, Wukong Azir. all these different mid 2v2 combos. It feels like they are the best in class at all of them, and it's very, very hard to stop this mid jungle 2v2. Zyko and Scary Jerry play best on the more aggressive laners, Varus, Lucian, Kalista, Draven. Scary Jerry definitely can play the more scaling supportive champions or the Zeri, that kind of stuff. But I think Zyko and Scary Jerry play best when they're allowed to kind of be unleashed in that bot side and just kind of go crazy, right, with these very aggressive 2v2 pairings. The amount of pressure that Maryville puts on the map as a whole and as a team is very, very unbearable, in my opinion. They consistently get early game leads and will just snowball that into victories, right? 1,000, 1.5, 2K gold leads prior to the 15-minute mark because they're killing your mid lane, they're going into enemy jungler, they're taking plates, they're pressuring dives. They are playing the map the best, and Maryville right now are very heavy favorites to win the whole title, and they should be because of the way they play the game and how efficiently this team plays the map. It's their biggest strength, in my opinion, on top of having some of the best laners in CLOL at the moment. That wraps it up for my Group A breakdown, and every single team has a legitimate shot at the CLOL title. I don't know how much more I can say that, but each of these teams have very strong identities and defined strategies, and when they execute on them properly, each of them feel unstoppable. The depth of talent that we have in the CLOL top 4 is, insane in my opinion. The skill ceiling is so high, and I'm just very excited that we get to see all these teams not just battle it out once, but twice, because we have the double elim format. We have losers bracket, winners bracket, all that kind of stuff. So seeing these teams fight it out, assuming they all make it to top 4, will be the most exciting part of CLOL for me, and I'm just very glad that I get to watch all these teams and watch all these players duke it out for that CLOL title. That does it for CLOL Study Hall. I really appreciate everybody that took the time to listen, to watch, whatever, all the way up from Group H all the way to Group A. I really do appreciate it. I had a ton of fun making these videos, researching all the teams, looking at the VODs, looking at the drafts. It was a ton of fun, and my brain is completely filled to the brim with the top 32 CLOL teams. Special shout out to Salty Runback for having me premiere this series on their channel, and special shout out to them hosting and creating a CLOL broadcast for everybody. And that was one of the main big reasons I wanted to make this video series, so I can put more eyes onto CLOL and hopefully get more donations and, fund that CLOL broadcast. So I really, really appreciated it. I love the Salty Runback guys. I think they do God's work when it comes to tier 3 and the collegiate space, and they're just proving why they're some of the best community members in the League of Legends space at the moment. Normally I would say see you next video, but for now I'll say see you next time.